I want to talk about this article entitled Satanic Temple Wins Battle to Bring Lucifer Display Inside Florida State Capitol. Let's have a look at this video.
Every year, the holiday season brings a new test of First Amendment rights as different religious groups build displays on or around government property. And Florida is one state that allows such displays in its capital. In 2013, Jews, Christians, atheists, secular humanists, and even pastafarians were permitted to create displays, but not the Satanic Temple, which was deemed grossly offensive by the government. Well, that's changing this year. The temple reapplied to create a display with the support of Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, and they won. And joining me to discuss is Lucian Greaves, a spokesperson for the Satanic Temple. So just for those who aren't aware, walk us through exactly what happened in Florida.
Well, it is important to note that the display that was approved this year is exactly the same display that was rejected as grossly offensive last year. I've seen some media state that it's similar, but it's not. It's exactly the same. We held on to the same one. The Florida's Department of Management Services declined to elaborate for us exactly what was grossly offensive last year. But this year, when we returned with a group of lawyers from Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, it seemed to help convince them that maybe it wasn't so offensive after all.
So it seems, well, it's interesting you said that. I mean, it seems counterintuitive that a group for the separation of church and state will back any religious organization. So why do you think this one supported you?
Yeah, I don't see any dissonance there at all, actually. What they're really saying is that, and we take the same position, it would probably be better if religious iconography was left off of the public grounds. But so long as any is going to be there, it's orders of magnitude better that anybody's allowed to be represented, and then you're avoiding a situation in the Establishment Clause case in which the government is showing obvious preference to one organization over another, one viewpoint over another. And when our display was judged grossly offensive last year, without any elaboration as to why it was grossly offensive, we were left to conclude that it was a matter of simple viewpoint discrimination. Not a matter of the display being offensive, but of Satanism being inherently offensive as a religion. But the fact is, there's a subculture of Satanism. It has all the elements we feel that a religion should: shared values, narrative, cultural identity, symbolic structure. And in Judeo-Christian culture, Satanism resonates for those who reject supernaturalism of the Abrahamic religion.
Yeah, so Lucian, just for those who aren't aware, I mean, I've got your website up, and you know, with the frequently asked question, and one of them is, do you worship Satan? And you know, you're very clear in it. You say we do not promote a belief in a personal Satan. So you know, with this particular mural that was now sanctioned by the state, what is the message imbued within it that you were trying to put out there that you felt was being curtailed by this infringement of the First Amendment?
Well, the only clear message you'll see on the display itself is "Happy Holidays" from the Satanic Temple. So it's funny to see this kind of outcry from conservative pundits attaching whatever values they think are appropriate as to what we really mean by that. But it brings up a lot of important questions about who's allowed representation, you know, who can be excluded and who can't be, and how far we respect our constitutional liberties and plurality in general. And these are very important questions, we think, and we're glad that these questions are being asked. And now you see that as the Satanic Temple takes more and more actions like this, the question arises when the right-wingers try to have religious encroachment into the state. They're usually only thinking that it's going to benefit them exclusively. And now you're seeing that dialogue change a bit, and you're seeing them think about it a bit different. And for just such a low-budget diorama to do that, I think is rather incredible.
Yeah, I mean, so Lucian, I mean, as you were saying, you know, there's biblical precedents, or you know, the Satan is kind of featured in you know, in the Bible, and there are stories around him. But do you think that this is almost like a branding issue? If your name was the Fire Temple instead of the Satanic Temple, do you think that you were going to be having as much problem as you have?
Well, no, that's exactly it. The idea is that Satanism is inherently offensive, and that we could only be doing this to intentionally insult Christians on what is believed to be a season for their holiday, even though we say Happy Holidays and make no reference to Christianity. But we hold affirmative values that often do run contrary to biblical strictures. Women's rights, personal sovereignty, the protection of children, gay rights, and these are things that our opposition could find out. They're available to the public if it eases any of their panic. But our beliefs really are kind of superfluous and irrelevant in a case like this, because it's simply not up to the government to decide which values are worthy of representation, which are not.
Absolutely. And Lucian, lots of people in the HuffPost community agree with you. Janet R says no one should be excluded. Allow one, allow all. And another here from Jeremy Simpson, who says, I say we just separate law and governance and religion.
Now, it says this year Satan is slated to join the pantheon of gods and agendas making a stand inside Florida's state capitol building. The Satanic Temple successfully joined forces with other church-state separation advocates to pressure the Florida Department of Management Services into accepting its Lucifer holiday display, the Orlando Sentinel reports. The religious diorama, scheduled to appear inside the Capitol's rotunda in Tallahassee on December the 22nd, features an angel falling from heaven into the fires of hell. A biblical reference next to the scene reads, "How you were fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn." The article continues by saying, nobody holds a monopoly over the celebratory spirit of the holiday season, Satanic Temple spokesperson Lucian Graves told HuffPost through email. If there is fun to be had, then, like the responsible hedonists we are, we'll have it. We hope everybody can put their differences aside and enjoy the holidays as they see fit. We think that our holiday display sends an affirmative message of inclusiveness and plurality. 1 year ago, a similar diorama from the Satanic Temple was rejected by the state agency for being grossly offensive, Greaves said. The organization retaliated this year by collaborating with Americans United for the separation of church and state to add legal pressure. Free speech is for everyone and all groups, the Reverend Barry W. Lynn, Executive Director of Americans United, said in a statement. State officials simply can't get into the business of deciding that some unpopular messages are offensive and must be banned. The Satanic Temple describes itself as an organized religion with a mission to encourage benevolence and empathy among all people. Florida's Capitol building has become a veritable free speech battleground in recent years. Along with the Satanists, the Florida Prayer Network, the International House of Prayer, American Atheists, Tallahassee Atheists, the Freedom from Religious Foundation, and the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster are hoping to display their messages on government property. Last year, a Seinfeld-inspired Festivus pole created out of beer cans also made an appearance inside the building.
Dear son, happy Festivus? What is Festivus?
It's nothing. It's not.
When George was growing up, his father hated all the commercial and religious aspects of Christmas, so he made up his own holiday.
Oh, and another piece.
Well, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know that Festivus is a made-up holiday on Seinfeld.
You know, that was a very popular episode. A lot of people not laughing, though. A pole decorated with beer cans will go up next to the nativity scene in the Capitol Rotunda. Now, an atheist got permission to set up this pole that's stacked high with beer cans next to the nativity scene with baby Jesus. Now, the man who created the pole really doesn't care about Festivus, but says it's all about expressing freedom of religion and freedom of speech. He says if Christians can have a nativity scene, then they can have a Festivus pole. Some Christians, though, say this is taking political correctness way over the top.
I think it's kind of a crazy idea.
Jesus Christ is our Lord, and that's it.
No Festivus pole.
No Festivus pole.
When the state of Florida decides that they're going to allow religious symbols to be displayed in the rotunda, they open the door, and I just walked right there.
Now, here we have a collection of atheist billboards. This one says, "Don't believe in God? Join the club." This one says, "We've got the whole world in our hands." The Triangle Free Thought Society. This one says, "You know it's a myth. This season, celebrate reason." This billboard says, "Are you good without God? Millions are." This signage says, "Imagine no religion." This, of course, was the John Lennon song called Imagine. Imagine no religion. This is again the Freedom from Religion Foundation. This signage is from American Atheists, and it says, "You know it's a myth. and you have a choice. Now, this is an interesting article talking about a pastor who urged his congregation to vote against Barack Obama, and he's targeted by Americans United for Separation of Church and State. And it says, an Eastern Kentucky Baptist pastor troubled by President Barack Obama's views on gay marriage violated federal law when he urged his followers to vote the president out of office in November, a Washington watchdog group said. Apparently, the claim is that Americans United for Separation of Church and State said Spriggs' comments violate a federal law that says tax-exempt churches should not oppose a political candidate. Executive Director Barry Lynn said the group receives several tips during election seasons of churches that may be violating the law, but he said only a few reports are sent to the IRS. This is one of the most over-the-top, unequivocal statements of opposition to a candidate that we have seen in a long time. Usually it's a little bit fuzzier, Lynn said. This guy clearly doesn't care what the law says. He said so far this year the group has filed 2 IRS complaints concerning the presidential election. Now, basically, what you're seeing here is that churches in America that are incorporated or become incorporated are not allowed to criticize the government in exchange for money, in exchange for tax relief. And I think that is an incredible compromise, because fundamentally they're having to sell their souls to the devil. It's just unbelievable that this is actually happening.
At 5 o'clock, Satan worshipers set their sights on Orange County schools. Yeah, you heard right. They say if Christians can distribute their pamphlets on campus, then their satanic workbooks should be available to students as well. Fox 35's Ann Keel, she's in our satellite center. She's got the whole story. Ann.
Well, a Satanist group out of New York wants to make its literature available to Orange County public school children later this school year, as you mentioned. And what's interesting is a spokesperson for the Satanic Temple tells us it's not just about sharing their religious beliefs. They plan to hand out the material as a form of protest.
We think any one religious group having that opportunity to propagandize and proselytize is deplorable. And the only way to make it tenable is to put forward the idea that we are a religiously plural nation.
The group believes the Orange County School District should not have allowed Christian evangelical groups to leave Bibles in common areas for students. An atheist organization called Freedom from Religion Foundation out of Wisconsin followed suit with its pamphlets, some of which were originally banned by school officials. That sparked a lawsuit. Parent Tim Schaefer says satanic material concerns him even at the high school level.
I guess the freedom of speech, I guess if they want to do that, that's fine. But I guess at some point you got to weigh, what's good and evil and what you want to allow.
An Orange County school spokesperson says they have not been directly contacted by the Satanist group yet, so they will not respond to their interests on camera. But the spokesperson did tell us they have allowed for the passive distribution of religious materials to the older students as of last year.
I think they're old enough, and it's more or less, the parents' job.
As for a policy in place that speaks to religious material in schools, it doesn't exist in Orange County. The schools just want to keep out so-called inappropriate material. The Satanic Temple says they just want a separation of church and state.
I think if you're going to put our material juxtaposed to the standard material, you're going to find that Satan is wildly popular with the kids.
And if you're wondering where this all began, Orange County school officials tell us after seeing a nearby county deny access to these religious groups, they became concerned about a possible and expensive lawsuit. Reporting live in the Satellite Center, Ann Keel, Fox 35 News.
What is the difference, and of course there are two different groups, between the Satanic Temple and the Church of Satan, which is something I think not everybody is completely up to speed on?
Well, the Church of Satan was, of course, founded in the 60s by Anton LaVey, who became kind of this iconic character with his goatee and bald head, and he was the author of the Satanic Bible. And one way in which we're similar is that we're both atheistic religions, in that we don't view Satan as an actual conscious deity. He's a metaphorical construct for us, the eternal rebel against the ultimate tyrant for us. However, The Church of Satan seems to fetishize authoritarianism, which is something we absolutely reject and find antithetical to the Satanic philosophy. Further, the Church of Satan still endorses supernaturalism. While they don't worship an actual Satan, they still engage in ritual magic and in tell tales of magic's efficiency and those kinds of things. We don't believe in at all. We reject supernaturalism entirely.
Let's now have a closer look at the Satanic Temple website. In the About Us section of the website, they claim that their mission is to encourage benevolence and empathy among all people, reject tyrannical authority, advocate practical common sense and justice, and be directed by human conscience to undertake noble pursuits guided by the individual will. No sooner do they claim to be civic-minded, but then immediately brand the Westboro Baptist Church as controversial and extremist. They also claim to be working on behalf of children in public schools who have been subjected to corporal punishment and more. If the Satanic Temple, which claims to be a religious order, seeks to put the world to rights, then we must explore the basis of their beliefs and explore their doctrines so that we can understand what motivates them. Here are the 7 fundamental tenets they apparently subscribe to. They say, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason. Now, if it is true that humanity is driven by reason, there would surely be no wars, murder, rape, debt, theft, or racial or ethnic divisions in the world. For that matter, there would be no poverty, because it's not reasonable that a very small percentage of the world's population strives to retain all the wealth for themselves and that other people are dying in the process. So I don't think an appeal to reason is going to achieve much. They then say the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. But of course, if there are no laws and institutions, who determines what constitutes justice? The next statement is that one's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. They use this particularly in association with the abortion argument, the right to have abortion. But all they're doing here is agreeing with Aleister Crowley's mantra, do as thou wilt is the whole of the law. It was Aleister Crowley who wrote the book called The Law of Thelema, a highly occultic book. Aleister Crowley was a deeply satanic or Satan-worshipping person. He was described as the most evil man in the whole of England at one stage. And of course, Satanism just promotes lawlessness and chaos in society. We see that here. If it's all about being free to do whatever we want to do whenever we want to do it, the Bible describes that as lawlessness, because surely it should be self-evident that if somebody else decides to do something that we're not happy with, and we claim, well, okay, they're free to do whatever they want to do, with no reference to anything or anybody or any moral code, that just can't be true, can it? They then say the freedom of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedoms of another is to forego your own. But just by examining this website, it seems obvious that the Satanic Temple is enforcing its will on others by staging legal actions against its opponents, resorting to law to display their Luciferian display alongside a Christian nativity scene in Florida, and now stating their intention to distribute satanic materials for children in public schools. I want to quote the last part of their own statement back to them. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedom of others is to forego your own. They carry on by saying beliefs should conform to our best scientific understanding of the world. We should take care never to distort scientific facts to fit our beliefs. Now, from this statement, it's apparent that according to the Satanic Temple, science has now become a religion. Is it not bizarre that the Satanic Temple, which brands itself a religion and who worships a so-called deity called Lucifer, resorts to science, appeals to science, claiming that science has the capacity to determine absolute truth? Despite the best efforts of the scientific world, man is still no closer to disproving the claims of the Bible that in the beginning God created all things. The problem, of course, is that when one denies the existence of God who created all things, including mankind, one is left with no option but to look elsewhere in order to make sense of what has already happened, i.e. creation. The truth is that scientists are still discovering what God has already created, and the theory of evolution is simply that, a theory that has not been proved and simply cannot be proved. In order for something to be regarded as scientific, it must firstly be observable and then repeatable, as in a formula that works exactly the same way each time it is applied. But due to claims by evolutionists that the Earth is millions of years old, for example, it is therefore impossible to observe evolution at work. Furthermore, never in history has one kind ever become another kind. Today, humans still give birth to humans, monkeys to monkeys, cows to cows, birds to birds, and so on. Claims of discoveries, fossil records, and virtual reality media, such as Steven Spielberg films, are all designed to baffle us with so-called facts that are no facts at all. There is therefore nothing scientific about the theory of evolution. What then is the basis on which we should have confidence in science when the created being, i.e. humans, are still discovering and trying to understand what has already been created? Now, moving on to the next point, they say people are fallible. If we make a mistake, we should do our best to rectify it and resolve any harm that may have been caused. This statement is nothing less than an admission that humans are imperfect, and that they do not have the capacity within themselves to live without the restraints of the law, a moral code as found in the Bible, and do not possess perfect reasoning ability. The Bible teaches that man has been corrupted by sin, and that the heart of all men is wicked and corrupt. Again, another contradiction in this statement is they claim that if we make a mistake, we should do our best to rectify it and resolve any harm that may have been caused. But harm according to who? If I'm free to decide what I want to do, and this is harmful to you, then obviously I'm not going to be in agreement with you. So who decides whether this constitutes harm or damage, or whether it doesn't? It's a contradiction in terms. The last statement says, every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. Now, I have no idea what nobility in action and thought is supposed to mean. A glimpse at the real world in which we live shatters the illusion that man is noble, compassionate, or wise. Most people act in their own best interests, and often at the expense of others. Of course, it shouldn't be that way, but it's just simply a reality. It's part of our fallen nature. So by taking a close look at the world of business and politics, for example, we can see this at work. Once again, the word justice appears in the statement, but my question is again repeated as to who will decide what represents justice. By what moral code will justice be determined? Now, in the opening paragraph of this web page, the Satanic Temple once again affirms that they are indeed a religious body by stating that they intend to distribute religious literature for schools. They affirm that they are in fact a religion, despite their denial that they do not teach the worship of a personal Satan. Now, either they do not worship a deity, in which case they cannot be regarded then as a religion, or they do worship a deity and are in fact a religion, but they can't have it both ways. It appears then that they are being disingenuous. Firstly, they don't want to admit that they worship Satan as a personal deity, because this will result in a backlash from members of society who understand the implications of teaching and upholding Satanism in a sane society. On the other hand, they do want to claim that they are a religion, because in so doing, it provides them with legal leverage and recourse to legal process, which is the strategy that they're now using to promote their dark agenda. So which is it? Do they in fact worship a personal deity called Satan, thereby confirming their claim that they're a religious order, or are they in fact not a religion? I think they've come up with a socially palatable smokescreen, i.e. that they do not teach the worship of a personal deity when in fact they do. So what then could their objectives be in distributing their satanic literature in schools? On this page, they affirm that they are atheists. We can also see throughout their website that they are fervently opposed to Christianity. It appears that they are also opposed to law and order, including moral law, and that they prefer to promote atheism, Satanism, lawlessness, and freedom from any restraints imposed on them, whether by the Bible, the church, or by society at large, or in fact anyone who disagrees with them on anything. Are these the principles and values that we want imposed on our children at school? If you're uncertain about that, simply do some research about Satanism. I guarantee that you will be shocked at what you discover. Don't be fooled by the smooth rhetoric of atheists and Satanists who will stop at nothing to further their dark Antichrist agenda. How ironic that just previously we saw that this atheistic movement doesn't want to be held accountable by any laws, but now on this page they want to uphold civil law by claiming that they undertake to protect children who are being abused in schools. They appeal to First Amendment protection and civil rights, when it suits them, of course. How strange that they now want to appeal to the law and to enforce their will and deception on others by recourse to law. They even state on this page that one does not even have to be a member of their movement in order to be represented by them. Does this mean then that they've now become a legal body as well as a religious order? I think they're confused. But here we see the true nature of this so-called religious order. What we see here is occult witchcraft at work, the performance of what they refer to as pink mass. It says, the Satanic Temple visited Meridian, Mississippi to perform a ritual ceremony known only to a select few called the Pink Mass. The ceremony was performed over the gravesite of the mother, Fred Phelps. They're calling this guy the mother, former head of the Westboro Baptist Church, an organization deemed a hate group by the ADL and SPLC. The Pink Mass ceremony was designed to make the deceased gay in the afterlife for those who believe, i.e. those who are Christians. Every time a gay couple kisses over the tombstone of a person who has had the ceremony performed, it is said they are pleasured in the spirit world. These are the people who are talking about that we must be tolerant of people and we must be aware of other people's rights and so on. But of course they contradict everything they've just said by what they're demonstrating here. Earlier on the tenets page of this website, the Satanic Temple stated that one of their tenets was the freedom of others should be respected. But then of course they add including the freedom to offend. Once again they want it both ways. This is a contradiction in terms as is demonstrated by this pink mass ritual. Now once again we have the claim that the Satanic Temple is a religious order. They claim that marriage is a religious sacrament, but how bizarre that they forget to mention that according to the Bible marriage is only possible between a man and a woman. It should be very clear to anyone watching this video that the spirit of Antichrist is at work here, and that this movement is seeking to subvert and to pervert the values of society and the Bible at every level. Now on this page we find the image of Baphomet. It's very easy to establish that Baphomet is none other than Satan. The symbol is also referred to as the goat of Mendes and is regarded as a deeply occultic symbol. It is also closely associated with Satanism in particular. Here we see, for example, the Satanic Children's Big Book of Activities, and by looking at the clothing advertised on this page, it is very clear that Satan is being worshipped and promoted. There is no guesswork here. We see other symbolism that is also quite interesting. Here we see a pentagram. We see an inverted cross, obviously anti-Christ, anti-Christian. We see the goat, which in the occult world is associated with Satan. Here we see an inverted cross once again. Protect our children, mind and body. What they really mean here is that they want to supposedly protect people from the teachings of the Bible. Here we see 666, the mark of the beast spoken of in the Bible. And of course they love Satanism, and they associate Satanism with being free and being an American. Again, disingenuous. Now what is interesting is the claim that they do not promote the existence of a personal Satan or devil. If we look at Baphomet and its relationship to Aleister Crowley, it says the Baphomet of Levi was to become an important figure within the cosmology of Thelema. This was a book that Aleister Crowley wrote called The Law of Thelema. So Aleister Crowley established this Baphomet symbol, okay, which represents the devil, if we just look down here. Crowley asserted that Baphomet was a divine androgen and the hieroglyph of arcane perfection. In other words, this Baphomet image was bisexual. Important to understand that, hence the connection with the sexual aberration that we see in the Satanic Temple website. Now, Crowley says, the devil does not exist. It is a false name invented by the Black Brothers to imply a unity in their ignorant muddle of dispersions. A devil who had unity would be a god. He says, the devil is historically the god of any people that one personally dislikes. So he's saying it's metaphorical. This serpent, Satan, is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade know thyself and taught initiation. He is the devil of the book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet, the androgen who is the hieroglyph of arcane perfection. He is therefore life and love. But moreover his letter is iron, the eye, so that he is light, and his zodiacal image is Capricornus, that leaping goat whose attribute is liberty. So clearly, although Aleister Crowley himself says the devil does not exist, he immediately attributes a personality to Satan and says that it is Satan who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. This, of course, goes back to Genesis 3, where Satan claimed that he had secret spiritual knowledge, and that secret knowledge was, in fact, that we are gods, or that we can become gods through a process of spiritual enlightenment or spiritual evolution. And this is exactly what is taught in every occult school and Masonic lodge all over the world. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're seeing here is a direct contradiction to what the Bible teaches. Now, I just want to conclude by appealing to sound-minded people to not be fooled by the rhetoric of this movement. This is nothing more than Satan presenting himself once again as an angel of light, as the Bible says he does. It's his modus operandi. He claims to be good, virtuous, moral, even righteous, and in this case wanting only to act in the best interests of helpless children. Please share this video with others to expose this evil. Do whatever you can to counteract movements such as this, which are simply accelerating the deep spiritual darkness that is currently coming upon this world. Please also don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.